Hi, I am Kathy Moran with KMI, and I'm really excited about this particular webinar. I've decided to try to do things maybe a little bit differently and record these so people can look at their leisure. And Namibia has always been on my bucket list ever since I've been in this business because I'm just fascinated by the diversity of the country. And when I had the opportunity to travel there recently, I grabbed that opportunity, and I certainly am thrilled to be able to talk to you all about it. So this is a great map. I'm a person that loves to share maps because I think it gives you a good idea of what region of the world we're talking about. So we're basically in the area of Southern Africa, and Namibia is has got the Atlantic Ocean to the west, Botswana to the right, South Africa, which it includes Cape Town and some of the beautiful regions and diversity again of wildlife there in South Africa, and Angola up at the top. So this is twice the size of California, and it's got only 2.6 million people. So you don't have a lot of crowds, and for this particular time that we're all going through, I just thought that it would make for a wonderful experience. So this is Namibia. And if you really don't know much about the country, there are 3 different ways you can tackle this. And some people in South Africa are very comfortable with self-drive, which is up at the top. I would say more people do guided, where they have actually a guide driver who takes them through the different regions. And then at the bottom, there's the flight, which I chose to do for 2 reasons, really, because of time constraints, and also because I wanted to see Namibia from the air. And that was just thoughts and videos. I'm going to share some things here that I just really do treasure. So these are the different ways you can tackle this destination. And I thought the wildlife was extremely unique. And again, I've been to different areas of Africa. This is my 4th trip. And I would have to say that the wildlife encounters here were extremely unique. And I do want to share this video with you. These are elephants, and the baby went into the watering hole and probably shouldn't have, but you can see what's going on here. They're panicking. So you see the baby now trying to get out of the water, slipping back. Some of the elephants are leaving. They don't know what to do. Others are running around in circles. So the baby's coming out, slips again, and the mother's pulling her out with her trunk. Our guide said that this was really amazing. The guide never really seen that before. So one of our unique wildlife encounters that I wanted to share with you. The great thing about Namibia is that you've got adventure safaris, different types of safaris, which is uncommon in other parts of Africa. So you'll have the horseback riding safari to the left, and a walking safari. That is me there with our guide, and the guides have rifles. So you're in the wilderness, you don't know what you might encounter, but I would say that I felt most comfortable doing a walking safari here in Namibia because they do this frequently. Other areas don't do that so much, but yes, those are 8 hippos off in the distance. And we were just walking very quietly toward the hippos. So really cool safari experience. And then on the right, you have mountain biking. So these are things that really you can't do in other regions of Africa. So I thought that was actually really cool. So the first place that we experienced was in the Kalahari Desert. And the Kalahari Desert is a large semi-arid sandy savanna. And even where the desert is dry enough to qualify as an actual desert in the sense of having low precipitation, it's not strictly speaking, a desert because the ground cover is really very dense. And some animals can therefore survive here, but they have to learn to adapt. So we learned about that. I thought that was really very interesting. For instance, they do not need the intake of water that many animals outside of the desert will need. And when you saw those elephants just a moment ago, in Botswana, in Eastern Africa, where they're used to water, they would never panic the way that they did. These elephants in the Kalahari Desert are used to watering holes, and they're not as frequent. So they do have to learn to adapt there. And in many cases in the Kalahari, the dunes are covered by vegetation, and the desert is spread across all parts of Botswana, Namibia, and Southern Africa. So Kalahari Desert is really very huge. And, it's surreal. It's beautiful. I'm going to show you some photos. And again, I love the adaptation that the wildlife had to do to the desert conditions. And we learned again about the Bushman culture, had an experience out in the bush with the Bushman culture, and there were quad bike safaris. So that's really very cool. And here you have it. And the bottom left is where we stayed for several nights, just really far out there. And, you have wildlife just walking by, your porch, and you sit out and have a glass of wine. And it's really very cool in that way. And I've seen many, many sunsets, and they're all so beautiful. But these sunsets were extraordinary because of the orange sand and the orange dunes with the yellow grasses. We saw a lion up there. That's right in the middle. You see the beautiful colors again. And the oryx on the right, this is an antelope, which has really adapted to the desert. So you see quite a few of those. And they're absolutely beautiful and very, very beautiful and healthy animals. So we were in the Kalahari Desert, which I will go back to because it's probably one of the most beautiful places that I've been in Africa. And our next was a flight about, I think about a half hour to Sossusvlei. And these are spectacular dunes. They're the highest dunes in the world. And this is actually a highlight. And sometimes people will just, if they have time for one thing in Namibia, this is probably where they're going to go. And this is in the southern part of the Namib Desert. And the Namib Desert is the oldest desert in the world. And like I said, it's a really spectacular site. And we did climb Dune 45. And there's also, for those who are really super in shape, Big Daddy, which, if you do it at sunrise, it's just stunning when you look at the colors. And again, you can explore the desert with the quad bike. Many people are booking scenic coastal flights. We didn't need to do that because our flights really included all of that. And the hot air balloon was something that I know people took advantage of. And stargazing, you're out there in the clear night sky, and it's absolutely beautiful. And this is where we stayed, in the desert, just right plunk in the middle of the desert, a beautiful fortress where we stayed at. It had delicious food, had a pool, had a spa, had two treatments because I'm coming off a flight, and that felt really very good. So that's where we stayed. And I just want to go back again. And here we have the hot air balloon, another beautiful sunset on the bottom, the oryx, which just makes the photography, just the beauty of that animal against the orange dunes is always going to be a great picture. And then in the bottom is me. You see little me, and not so little, but you can see how huge these dunes are. And then John up at the top, we both hiked Dune 45. It's a great experience. So one of the things we wanted in our itinerary was a little bit of a break, and we went to a place called Swakopmund. It's in Namibia's coastal retreat area. And this is actually where we stayed, a beautiful boardwalk. We were able to, stretch our legs and just breathe some great air. So our flight here was a scenic flight, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about, but the flight went over the Skeleton Coast. And if we probably out here haven't heard of it, but it's the skeleton coast is often used to describe the entire Namib Desert coastline. And the skeleton coast is called that because it's associated with shipwrecks. And there are stories of sailors walking through the desert in search of food and water, because when you're flying over, you see that, if you're shipwrecked, there's absolutely nothing around you. And the blinding fog, which is really typical of this coast, and which we encountered and we definitely had to fly through, it resulted in ships running aground or wrecking off the offshore rocks. And so the coast is littered with scores of shipwrecks. Some are barely recognizable, others are still in remarkably good condition, but we flew low over them. It was actually cool, and no other way really to see this. And parts of the coast are home to abandoned diamond mines, ghost towns, and living fossils. So that's Swakopmund. And about 30 minutes from the little town that we stayed in, you have a desert, another desert. The colors are different. This desert is only like, I think, 30 million years old, and the portion of the Namib desert that we were in is 80 million years old. So the sand color varies. And here we're doing the quad biking, and there was hardly anyone out there. So with our guide, we just went all over and got some great photos. And there I am in the right with the little bird. Remind me of being in the Galapagos when the birds just come up to you, and they're just so friendly because, they're just probably not really that used to a lot of people, and they're very, very curious. And then here in the middle, you see the Skeleton Coast, and we've probably had a half-hour flight over the coast line here. And like I said, we saw shipwrecks and the diamond mines, and just really pretty unforgettable. Something to recommend. And the next flight, again, another scenic flight, but this time over dunes, different color dunes. And we were flying to Damaraland, and this is really an ancient area with dramatic scenery again, but very different because it's now you're having granite boulders and very wide open spaces. And it's crisscrossed with prehistoric waterways, which are now drying up. So this is the problem that some of these animals are running into. But the main game drive is to see the desert adapted elephants, which I thought were really pretty friendly. I mean, they came very close to the vehicle, and you saw those elephants in the very beginning. Those were the Damaraland elephants, and they're lighter in color. And you can see how protective they are of their young, because, they were just unsure of that situation. And, I felt kind of honored that we were able to experience something like that. Also, Damaraland, as you can imagine, you have beautiful stargazing in the clear night. And then there's famous rock art from centuries ago. It's really pretty well preserved. So we got to get out one day, and our guide took us to see the Damaraland's famous rock art. And you have rhinos, which is actually very cool. If you know anything about rhinos, and the more you look at Africa, you know those are hard to spot. And for some reason, Namibia, because they're focusing on that conservation, they have 700 rhinos. And that's a lot of rhinos, and they're having really great success with the breeding. And so we were they are in the area of Damaraland. We weren't there long enough to actually go out and look for rhinos, but you certainly can do that. And on the right, you will see elephants, and they're adapting to the beautiful granite rocks, and there's grasses, low-lying grasses that are, I guess, a treat for them, so they climb. And it's very rare, I think, to see a climbing elephant. But what's really cool is they try to make it special. And one day, we were only there 2 nights, but they asked, hey, one of the nights, would you like to have, special dinner? And, we had what everybody else had, but they set up a little area by the granite rocks, kind of secluded, and we had our own waiter. Really, really beautiful experience. And this can be done, when you're staying at nicer lodges. I mean, this can really be done in advance. Certainly it can be set up, but they were really looking to do anything special for guests because they do want you back. And so then our next flight is to see, the big game, which to me is, I love big game. And I know that Etosha is considered the top place to see the wildlife in Namibia. So that definitely was going to be on my list. And Namibia Park, Etosha, is the finest game reserve, and it covers 8,500 square miles. And it's got 114 different mammals and 340 bird species. So it's like super rich with wildlife. And Etosha means great white place, and it's dominated by a massive mineral pan. You can see that large pan there. It covers 25% of the national park. And the springs, which come in certain times of the year, along the edges of the pan, you're going to have water, and that's going to bring a large concentration of wildlife and birds. So it's really just quite a spectacle there. And Etosha is a national park. We stayed in the private game reserve, and for anybody interested in the differences and wanting to talk about it, I experienced both in several locations of Africa, and happy to talk about why you would stay in one versus the other. But we had a secluded, exclusive location, and we were able to experience a walking safari, which cannot be done in a national park. So you saw me with the walking safari, and I felt really comfortable in Namibia because they are so used to it, and the guides are really comfortable. And we saw lion in the morning. We saw lion heading off at night, in prides, 6, 7 lion. It was just not uncommon. And hippo, I was so thrilled if I could see a hippo once, and I could not believe the first day how I just saw several hippo. And I would say throughout the whole experience we saw probably 15, 18 hippo. Big, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful wildlife. Giraffe, oryx, zebra, and all looking extremely healthy, which I was so happy to see. And you can sleep outside. They have deck experiences under the stars, very cool. And they all seem to have watering holes. It's very common, probably because you're in the desert, they can't get a lot of water, and the animals really come to these watering holes. And you can just sit out, have dinner, have a cocktail, and just see quite a spectacle right there. And then night game drives, which cannot always be done, but we certainly were able to sign up for that should we choose. So that's the Etosha, and definitely a different type of animal experience. And here we are. This is our lodge. You can see the viewing decks. They make it so open because people come out at all times of the day to watch the animals, and the region and area there is just very, very beautiful. So this is the main lodge, and then they have the cottages, off to the side. And again, the variety and the health of the animals and their interaction with you, I thought was really extreme. And that was certainly a highlight for me. And just some pictures from Namibia from the air. We touched upon this. As you can see, there's just no way a car is going to be able to get you to see these beautiful untouched regions that are millions and millions of years old. And then on the right, we've already seen that, but I had to show it again because the Skeleton Coast is just mesmerizing. And fortunately, for the most part, we had a very clear day for that. So I guess to end this all, I think you need to know, and from my presentation, you get a very good idea whether or not this is an experience for you. If you love the diversity of your experience, I don't think there's anything quite like Namibia. It's really a precious, precious gem in Africa. And if you're open to different type of safari experience, whether they be walking, quad biking, horseback riding, you certainly have those options that are available to you. And you can do whatever's comfortable. If you don't feel like you want to do it, no problem. that's perfectly okay as well. There's certainly better times to go than others. It's kind of in depth, and I'm happy to discuss with any of you about that. And also, you can pair this with Botswana very easily. You could also pair it with South Africa, Cape Town, and maybe do Kruger, do one of the other Sabi Sabi game reserves out there, and kind of do your comparison in that way. But there are certainly ways that you can incorporate Namibia, this beautiful destination, into your next adventure. So there's my contact information, kmorantravel.com, and Kathy Moran at Kmoran Travel. That's my email, probably best way to get in touch with me. And if you have any questions, like I said before, please feel free to reach out. And thank you so much. And hopefully I'll hear from you. Take care. Bye-bye.